Hello, viewers, welcome back to Sorry What. I have another story for you where a storm brought a bigger storm. I won't keep you for much longer, so let's begin. Note: at the end of the story I want to share with you a small update about my life, since a lot of you asked me about that. Love you all and thank you for your support. I studied forensic science and have a PhD in molecular biology. Early in my career I did lab work for the FBI, and then spent a couple years as a pathologist for a large hospital. However, I grew tired working for the man, so upon turning 40, I opened my own shop specializing in DNA analysis. RHT Labs, Robert Henry Thomas, my full name, provides court-admissible DNA testing for government agencies, businesses, attorneys, and private citizens. My love for science came from my mom and my head for business from Pops. I'm not insanely wealthy, but I've opened 3 labs in a large Midwestern city and am doing well. My wife Melissa, Liz for short, was my college sweetheart. We met in the middle of our sophomore year and within a few weeks were exclusive. She studied biology in secondary education. We married 6 months after graduation during the break at the end of my first semester of grad school. She taught at the local high school. We were madly in love, dining on more than our fair share of ramen noodles, and off to a great start. 4 years into our marriage, Tracie Lynn came along. 2 years later, she was joined by RHT Tour Hank, as we called him. Liz enjoyed being a mom, but also kept her hand in teaching as a sub for our school district. Eventually, she went back to the classroom full-time when Tracie was in 3rd grade and Hank was in 1st. The kids were 12 and 10 when I went private. It was tough for the first year or so. Long hours and going through staff until I found the right combination of people who enjoyed hard work, along with good pay and benefits. They learned quickly they worked for an owner who was tougher on himself than anyone else. Now at 47, marriage, kids, work and our lake cottage take up most of my world. We bought our place at the lake about 10 years ago. It was pretty run down, so we got it for a bargain and didn't mind working together fixing it up. When school let out for the summer, Liz and the kids spent 85% of their time there. I cut my work week down to 4 days, June, July and August, so I can enjoy long weekends with our loving crew. Over the years our marriage has had its ups and downs. Mostly ups, but like any other couple we fight from time to time. We can both be stubborn, but we rarely stay angry at each other for more than a couple of hours. Neither of us like being out of sorts with the other, so we're quick to admit where we've been wrong and make amends. No marriage is perfect, but I wouldn't trade mine for the world. Until recently. Tracie was in her 2nd year at college, which meant Hank would also be headed off to school in the fall. All of us were looking forward to the summer lake house because it was clear that our time with just the 4 of us would not last much longer. Tracie had a boyfriend, and while neither Liz nor I thought he was the one, we knew it probably wouldn't be more than a few years before she'd bring that special one home for us to meet. We would welcome an expanding family when it happened, but we were also relishing the time we still had with our small tight-knit crew. It was late spring, and Liz has spent the last 2 weekends at the lake getting the house ready to open. This had been her ritual for as long as we'd owned the place. She'd have time to herself, which meant attention, getting the cottage just as she liked it, while still having a couple evenings to sit, read, and sip some wine without interruption from her husband or kids. The 3 of us at home came up with our own traditions, which included an early season baseball game in St. Louis or Chicago. Each of the last Sunday evenings when Liz returned from what she called prep and scrub weekends, she seemed a bit off. Nothing I could put my finger on, but my wife was definitely out of sorts. On the 2nd Sunday when she returned in the same frame of mind, I asked her if she was okay. She snapped at me, something she rarely does, and left the room in a huff. WTF. I thought, and gave her a wide berth for the next couple of hours. Before we climbed into bed for the night, she apologized for her behavior. "I'm sorry, Henry, I shouldn't have been harsh with you earlier. Please forgive my rude behavior." "Of course, Liz," I responded. "I'm sorry if I did something to irritate you. I was just concerned you didn't quite seem yourself." "I'm good, Henry," she replied without looking at me. "I guess I'm just a little worn out from all the work at the lake." "Okay, sweetness, how about a back scratch?" "That would be perfect," she purred. Liz loves to have her back scratched. After a few minutes of very platonic grazing her back, my hands began to wander. We're still very physically intimate and active. Sometimes the kids will come down to breakfast and catch us grinning from ear to ear holding hands. Most often it is Tracie that tells us TMI or please get a room and spare us. Hank just turns a bit red and giggles. Usually, when she comes home from being at the lake, she's in the mood. Tonight, when I began to initiate, she didn't even roll over. She just sighed deeply and said, "Thanks for the scratch, babe, but not tonight, okay?" I wasn't shocked. I'd been turned down on any number of times, just like any normal husband. But with our recent schedule, it had been over a week, and that did surprise me. Sadly, it would be only too soon I'd learn what was up. If you live in the Midwest, you live with the threat of tornadoes. Much like earthquakes in California or hurricanes on the East Coast, folks in our part of the country are well aware of twisters and what they can do. In the spring it's never a question of if, it is always a question of when and where. This year it was our turn. The Class 3 tornado has winds up to 165 miles per hour. Class 5s can hit velocities of over 200 miles per hour. It was Monday night after Liz returned from her second cleanup trip that a Class 3 hit a half-mile from our place. I immediately called our next-door lake neighbors Eric and Bev Parson. Their place was about 100 yards down from us. They were retired and lived at the lake year-round. Eric answered on the second ring. "Henry, it was a hell of a storm that just came through here. You and Bev okay, Eric? Anything I can do for you?" "We're good, Henry, thanks for asking. No real damage to anything right around us. I took a quick look at your place, and there are a couple of broken windows and lots of branches and sheet blown all around the property, but nothing significant. The rain has passed by, so I'll board up your windows in the morning. No need for you to rush down here tonight." "Thanks, Eric, I'm relieved you are okay. I'll be down first thing in the morning. I'll bring a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts for you as a token of my appreciation." "Save your money, Henry. Bev will just find the damn things and make me throw them out. She can sniff out food she deems unhealthy a mile away. Drives me crazy sometimes." "Well, maybe I'll just bring a couple and keep them over at my place. I can call when I arrive with a need for a helping hand." "Well, that might just work, Henry. Good night, see you in the morning." I let the office know I wouldn't be in for a couple days. Truth was, they probably got more done without me there. My assistant Shelby told me she wasn't sure how they'd get by without me, but they'd try. Liz offered to take off and help me, but once I explained we'd been spared most of the serious damage, she decided to stay home and work. We were also aware leaving an 18-year-old high school senior alone for a couple of days would be an accident looking for a place to happen. I headed to the lake and spent the next couple of days picking up and arranging for 3 new windows to be installed. Eric came over and helped me with a few things, and I did the same for him. If there was any consumption of Krispy Kremes, my lips are sealed. It was Wednesday afternoon, and all the major pickup and cleanup was complete. Liz had put the trash can out by the mailbox before leaving on Sunday since pickup at the lake was Tuesday. Due to the storm, all its contents were still strewn around the yard. The trash bin was blown down the street. Once I rolled it back, I began my final task of refilling it with what had blown all over the lawn. I was almost done when I spied what looked like a Ziploc bag on the far side of our yard. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed a clear plastic bag. Nothing odd about that, but its contents seemed to be discarded clothing. I held it up and saw what appeared to be one of Liz's bathing suits, a blouse, and a pair of panties. When I opened it, my nostrils were assaulted with a combination of odors. Human sweat and other bodily secretions had been closed tightly for at least 3 days. Remember, I'm in the DNA business. I recognized the scent was familiar to the aroma in our labs. I held the blouse up. 4 of the 6 buttons were missing. Both the bathing suit and panties looked to have dried semen on them. I could feel my lunch pushing its way back up my throat as I fought to keep it down. I lost. How could this be? Liz and I had not been together at the lake since Thanksgiving weekend, and as I recalled, it was a big family weekend, so sex wasn't on the menu. I knew enough to know the contents hadn't been in the bag more than a few days. Almost 25 years of marriage built on love and commitment was suddenly shaken at its foundation. I carried my newfound items to her deck, sat down and forced myself to think. Clearly, Liz would have known I'd not be down at the lake before Tuesday morning when the trash collection came by. There was no need to hide anything since it would be gone long before my first visit of the spring. But who? Our house was far enough away from Parsons that you could come and go without being detected. I also recalled how I felt Liz was off when she returned from both weekends. Was that because she was coming home after being with him? How long had she been unfaithful? Was it someone who lived here, or did they just meet here? Someone with whom she worked. A neighbor. Was he clean? Could I have STDs? My head was spinning, and I was having trouble breathing. I fought for composure, but it was tough. I was in no shape to go home. After an hour, I had an immediate solution. I called Liz to tell her there was more to do here, and I'd already had a few beers. It would be better if I stayed put for the night and headed back to town early in the morning. The lake house was only an hour away, so I could be up at 6 and be in the office by my normal 8 a.m. "I'm glad there isn't too much damage," Liz said when I'd informed her of my plan. "I just wish you were coming home tonight. I wanted to make up for my lack of enthusiasm on Sunday." "Sorry, Liz, but I'll see you at some point tomorrow." "Bye, sweetie, I love you." "Good night, Liz." I couldn't bring myself to tell her I loved her. I had a couple of 5 bourbons and eventually drifted off to an uneasy sleep until 5 a.m. On my way home I made some decisions as well as some phone calls. I do the DNA lab work myself, so I needed to get straight to the lab and get it started before anyone else arrived. Secondly, I called my lawyer, Tom Kinkade, and filled him in. Finally, I called a friend I'd worked with back in my FBI days, who had also gone into the private sector, and told him what I needed. By the end of the day, I had 2 of 3 things done. Tom and I had met for a couple of hours over lunch. Bad news, no matter what, she'd get 50% of everything in a divorce. Even with the kids older and perhaps choosing to live with me, she'd do just fine financially. How warped is our system, I thought. Betray your vows to the people you profess to love and get rewarded financially. Secondly, my friend was able to pull some strings and have state-of-the-art, impossible to detect surveillance equipment installed at the lake house. Not that it would help much in a divorce, but I wanted evidence of her infidelity. No way I was going to let her play the victim with our friends and family. I'd go full-bore social media if necessary. Liz would probably land on her feet financially, but she'd not leave this marriage with her reputation intact. My third project was the DNA identification process. Obviously, Liz's results were easy to determine, but finding an unknown person took more time. No sooner than the end of work tomorrow if I was lucky. I arrived home, hugged the kids and gave Liz a brief peck on the cheek. Everyone was interested in my last 24 hours. I'd taken pictures with my phone, so everyone gathered around and looked over my shoulder as I narrated the story. Even with her duplicity, it was clear Liz was concerned about our second home. She had just as many amazing memories as the rest of us, and we'd been together a long time. I kept talking on even keel, trying to keep my composure. She was so close looking at my phone that her scent filled my nostrils. Normally, that would begin to arouse me sooner or later. Tonight, her aroma just made me sad. I had intentionally taken a picture of the trash scattered over the yard. Before returning, I edited the picture and made the Ziploc bag just a bit bigger in the frame. Even amid my pain, I decided a little mind gamesmanship was in order. I mean, look at all that trash. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff I had to pick up and rebag, I narrated, pausing a second or two longer on this picture. I felt Liz go a bit stiff for the briefest instant. Later that night as we climbed into bed, Liz reached for me. I think she felt me stiffen when she draped her arm across me and moved in by my side. "Are you okay, Henry? What's wrong, honey?" Normally, I'd turn, and we'd talk almost nose to nose. Tonight, I just stayed facing away from her. "Just tired," I lied. "All the work at the lake house, then a couple of drinks too many last night, an early morning and a long day." "Thank you for taking care of all that, Henry. I know it was a lot. I probably should have gone with you and helped." "It's okay, Liz, but I do think you ought to go down next week after you finish school on Monday, and make sure the windows were put in correctly, and everything is up to your standards. I think we'd all be relieved to know you were there, looking things over with our family's best interest in mind." "Of course, Henry, I was thinking that as well. I'll head down after school. Our last day is a half day, so I might be able to be back by Tuesday night." "No rush, Liz, just want to make sure everything is how you like it. You're most important." As she caught the several innuendos I tossed out, she didn't let on. Her hand began reaching lower on my torso. "How about I make you feel all better, my loving husband?" Now I must pause here for a moment and say with relative certainty, I've never turned down sex with Liz in my life ever. She was always the most beautiful woman in the world to me. Her looks, her mind, her personality were all glorious, and if I was breathing, I'd be ready to go sexually. Tonight, I was fighting to keep the tears from coming. "I'm sorry, Liz, I'm absolutely exhausted." She stopped her caressing, and I could hear a small gasp escape her lips. "Oh, well, of course, Henry, you need a good night's sleep. I love you." "You too," I replied, omitting love and hoping it would go unnoticed. As I lay in the dark, I knew my marriage was most likely over. I couldn't just turn off my love for Liz, but I'd never trust her again. She'd obviously found something missing in our relationship and filled it with another man. She'd lied to me and betrayed our family. She'd never leave the house again when I wouldn't wonder where she was going or who she was meeting. The idea of her at the lake house 4 days a week without me was a complete non-starter. Whoever he was, he had been in our lake house with my wife. Probably in our marriage bed where they ducked. No, I couldn't stand for that disrespect. At 4:30 a.m. I gave up tossing and turning. Liz was sleeping deeply when I showered, dressed, and left for the office. Unusual for a Saturday, but not unheard of. She called me around 7 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Something I rarely did. She texted, "Hope you slept better and are on the mend. I love you." I didn't respond for an hour. Sorry, been working on an important last-minute order. I guess I'll see you this evening. Still tired. I included a heart-shaped emoji. It was the best I could do under the circumstances. Even though it was Saturday, I called Tom at 9 and asked him to begin drawing up divorce papers. Or state aloud for adultery to be a reason for divorce, even though it wouldn't matter one bit in court. Still, I wasn't going to go with irreconcilable differences horseshit. I told him to have everything ready by next week. By 3 p.m. I had the name Kenneth Glen Lester. The name seemed familiar to me, but I couldn't quite place it. The information that came back from a Google search did the trick. Les had been the clubhouse manager at the lake for the last 3 years. He was in his early 30s and had done a couple years in prison for breaking and entering when he was 20. I learned about him from Eric, who said he was a good kid who did some stupid stuff when young, but was making the most of his second chance opportunity. From my limited interactions, it seemed Les was always polite when we went to the club for dinner. He ran a good operation and had a friendly spirit with everyone. If anything was wrong, Les would make it right. He worked hard and smart from what I could see. Apparently, he made quite an impression on my wife since he turned her into his slot. I guess she just couldn't resist ducking a guy who was 12 years younger. Must have done wonders for her ego. I wasn't sure how I was going to navigate the next 2 days until Liz went down to the lake. My sadness began to turn to anger, and I was afraid I'd blow up at her. The good news was Hank's high school baseball team had a couple of games that weekend, so I could attend those in the late afternoon. Liz would probably be at one of them if not both. Being together publicly would be a hell of a lot easier than being together alone at the house. I could work an hour or two extra in the yard each day without too much suspicion. If Liz asked, I could always say I was doing more now, so it wouldn't be piled up when I started going to the lake house in a couple weeks. Bedtime would be another issue, but there was no way I was going to have sex with my cheating skunk wife. I had no idea what Lester boy may have passed on to her, and no way I wanted sloppy seconds, no matter how much time had passed. It was a tough 2 days. Liz kept trying to make it up to me, and my excuses seemed lame even to me. By Sunday night, her frustration had turned to anger. I hope you get your head out of your behind by the time I get back from the lake house, she hissed at me before pulling all the covers over to her side of the bed. Good night. Monday, I was up and out early without a goodbye. Hank texted me on his way to school that morning. Dad, I could hear Mom crying earlier this morning. Is she okay? A bit of a challenge right now, Hank, but I'm sure she'll be fine. Okay, love you, Dad. Love you, son. I put my phone down on my desk and shed a couple of tears too. How the duck did life get this messed up so quickly? Later, after lunch, Liz sent a text. Thanks for the warm and loving send-off today. You're such a prick right now. Drive safe, Liz. See you soon. Remember, make sure everything is to your liking. That is what is most important. Whatever. Later that evening, Hank was out with some buddies, and I pulled up the live feed from the lake house that my FBI pal had provided. Sure enough, there in our living room, seated closely together on the couch, was my loving wife and her paramour Lester the molester, as I'd aptly named him. Her head laid on his shoulder and he was stroking her hair. You don't think he knows, do you, Les? I don't see how he could, babe. It's only been since last Thanksgiving and only 8 times. We've been beyond discreet. I see no way he'd find out. I'm sure you're right, but he has been so strange since he came back last Thursday after the storm. He even turned me down for sex 3 different times. Well, let me help make up for the lack of attention. Lester smirked as the hand he had draped over her shoulder cupped her breast. Lester, please. I love how you rock my world in bed, but I do love my husband and our family. I have no intention of losing either. We both know this is just a fling. It's not love, and it never will be. For all I know, you're probably ducking at least 2 or 3 other wives. You're right, Liz. I don't mean to come off as anything other than a fun distraction. However, I do care about you and don't want to see you hurt. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, am I the first guy you slept with outside your marriage? I'm not judging or anything, just curious. Liz paused for a moment. Holy shit, I thought. I didn't believe this could get worse. There was one other about 5 years ago. He was a new administrator in our district, and he was hot as duck. I don't know what came over me, but for some reason he picked me out and I didn't resist. We screwed around for about 6 months before I came to my senses. Truthfully, I caught him ducking an assistant principal at the middle school. I slapped him so hard I think he saw stars for a couple of days. Mac Jensen, I thought to myself. That ducking slime ball was so smug around me, now I know why. He was ducking my hooer wife. Remind me never to cross you, Liz. By the way, just to be truthful, I am ducking around with Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson. I know you don't care since we're just a fling, but I do want you to know each of us are clean from any STDs. I'm being very careful. Good to know, stud. I knew about Julie. Kim is a bit of a surprise since she comes off as such a goody two-shoes. Well, since we both know this is just for kicks, I'm amped up with my man neglecting me all week, so why don't you take me to bed, lover, and make a real woman out of me? I switched over to the hidden bedroom cam and watched for about 10 minutes. It was 9 minutes more than I thought I could bear. They tore each other's clothes off and went at it hard. I turned it off when my wife started begging. I went into the bathroom and hurled. Tuesday, I texted Tracie and told her Hank and I needed to Zoom with her. At noon I shared the ugly truth with my children. It broke my heart, but I couldn't sugarcoat it or pretend what their mom was doing wasn't true. I was sad and cried through a good bit of it. They both cried as well, but ultimately said they would try to understand and be supportive. I told them I was going to give their mom a chance to come clean with me on Wednesday night. If she did that, there might be a slim chance we could make it. Obviously, they couldn't breathe the word of what they know if they spoke with their mom. Tracie invited Hank to come up for the rest of the week since his school was out and she was taking an early summer class before coming home. I thought it was amazing of her to think about her kid brother when her own heart was breaking. When Liz came through the door around 4 p.m. I was waiting in the den, seated in my leather chair sipping some Four Roses single barrel bourbon neat. She glided across the room dropping her purse and bag, intending to plop down on my lap. I guess after being freshly ducked by Lester the molester she was satiated and in good spirits for her clock husband. I held my hand up to keep her at arm's length. She saw the very serious expression on my face. What is wrong, Henry? I motioned to the couch. Please sit down, Liz. Can I get you something to drink? No, I'm fine. Now please tell me, Henry, what on earth is wrong? Oh my, are the kids okay? The kids are fine, Liz. Nothing to worry about there. I could see her relax just a bit at that piece of good news. Sadly, it would probably be all downhill from here. Liz, I'm going to give you one chance and one chance only. Is there anything you want to tell me, Liz? Or I should say, is there anything you're willing to tell me about, Liz? I'm looking for complete honesty from you, my dear wife, and in exchange, I will be completely honest with you. Please think carefully before you answer. Henry, what do I have to tell you? The lake house is okay. The kids are fine. Until a few days ago, you and I hadn't had a disagreement in several months. Our sex life is usually very good. What do you want me to say? My hopes for any pathway forward were being dashed by the second. Liz, I've been honest with you our entire marriage. I've never lied, never deceived you or misrepresented the truth. I'm not perfect, far from it. I don't always get it right, but being completely open with you has always been one of my top priorities in our relationship. So, one last time, Liz, is there anything you need to be honest about with me? It was then that our marriage ended. Honestly, Henry, I have no idea what you're looking for or talking about. Tears began to form in my eyes. I'm so terribly sad, Liz. So very sad that you hold me and our marriage in such contempt. I guess I'll never know what I did to deserve your betrayal and disloyalty. I thought we were together as one forever until we died. Now I know that hasn't and will never be the case. Liz, I know all about your lovers Ken Lester and Mike Jensen. Liz's face turned to Shen in an instant. Her mouth gaped open even as one of her hands clasped over it. Oh no, 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 she said, barely above a whisper. The louder, no, Henry, please let me explain. Oh Lord, what have I done? Please, Henry, they mean nothing, I love only you. Really, Liz? Mike Jensen was, how did you put it, hot as duck, I believe was the term you used. And if memory serves me correctly, Friday night you told Lester the molester that you were amped up because your husband had neglected you, so he needed to take you to bed and make a real woman out of you. Neither of those sound like they don't mean anything to you. How and Henry, how did you hear those things? Simple, my cheating wife. I had surveillance equipment installed last week after I found your soiled swimsuit and cum-filled panties in a Ziploc bag that had been blown out of the trash bin during the storm. It also contained your ruined blouse, but I'm sure you'll be able to replace it, so Lester can rip another one from your body as you devour one another. The DNA testing was easy enough for obvious reasons. You mean you spied on me and Lester? No, Liz. Everything was recorded, but I stopped watching after you blew him, and he began taking your skank kitty doggy style on the bed I thought was only for you and me. Once you started moaning like a witch in heat, I turned it off, went into my bathroom and threw up. Liz was crying now, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't comfort her, nor did I continue my description of her working. I simply sat in silence, under a blanket of pain that covered my heart like the darkest of nights. After a few minutes she began to compose herself. What can I do, Henry? How can I make this right? Please tell me we can fix this. I can't imagine my life without you, our home, our world together. Please Henry, tell me there's a way out of this mess. There's a way, Liz, but it isn't, and it never will be together. You took my trust, my love, my pledge to be with you, and only you and you callously crushed them. I cherished you, Liz, and you spit on my love. You mocked me as a man and as a husband. How could you consider I'd sit still for my wife ducking other men? Do you think that little of me? I'm sorry you made your choices, Liz, but now I've made mine. The only way forward is separately. With that, I reached down and picked up a manila envelope and tossed it onto the couch next to her. The outside of the package read, "Petition for divorce." No, Henry, please not this. We must try to stay together for us and for our children. For your business and my teaching career. We can work through this. I can get professional help. We can get professional counseling. We're strong, Henry, we can withstand this storm. Liz, let me be clear. I'm divorcing you on the grounds of adultery. You can tear up those papers and throw them away if you like. But if you do, I'll have my lawyer draw up another copy, and I'll have you served at work, in front of your students and co-workers. Please don't do that to Hank. However little you think of me, please at least spare your son. Henry, you love me too much to do that, and I love you too much to walk away from 24 years of marriage. Please, work with me to find a solution that saves our marriage, our family. Liz, you have no clue what genuine love is. You've mistaken comfort and security for commitment. Love is an action, not a feeling. You love someone when you are faithful. Love is forsaking all others. Love is caring more about the other person than you care about yourself. Tell me, Liz, how much were you loving Tracie and Hank while you were ducking your paramours? How deeply interested were you in saving our marriage while you spread your legs for men whose only interest in you was sex? Your actions show you for who you truly are, Liz, a self-absorbed, cheating and lying slut. I'll fight you on this, Henry. I'll fight this divorce tooth and nail. I'm not going to give up on us. I was beginning to tire of her self-righteousness as anger swelled up inside me. Liz, you stupid witch, you're beginning to get on my last nerve. Go ahead and fight if you want. Why don't you start by calling your kids and telling them what is happening? Try to convince them you love me and our family. Do you know where Hank is right now? He's at school with Tracie, probably crying his eyes out because his family is about to implode. What on earth have you done, Henry? What did you tell our children? I sighed deeply. The truth, Liz, I simply told them the truth, that you had 2 sexual affairs with 2 different men. One about 5 years ago and one that was currently ongoing. I was honest with them, Liz, which is more than I can say for you. I didn't tell them to hate you or abandon their relationship with you. I told them that if you came home and confessed truthfully what you'd done, there was a slim chance our marriage could make it. But you showed your true colors today, Liz. You showed you cared more about yourself than us. What is going to happen, Henry? I hope we can divorce quietly without rancor or becoming a big spectacle. I'd love to leave you with nothing, but there is no way that would ever happen in today's courts. But I am suing the school district and the club at the lake. They probably won't go anywhere, but I want some people held accountable. You were the primary culprit here, but there were others who have acted to destroy our marriage. You had accomplices and I want them to pay. You'll probably make out better than me financially, at least for the first few years. Custody is a moot point since Hank will be out of the house in college before anything is finalized. I'm not moving out, I don't care if you do or don't. I'm staying in the master bedroom. You can move into the spare room or go live with Lester the molester for all I care. But if you fight me on this, Liz, if you try to play the victim, I'll spread the recordings of the last 2 days everywhere, beginning with your parents, then your siblings, friends, co-workers and even your Wednesday pickleball league. I'm not the bad guy here, I didn't sleep around or blow up my marriage, and I won't try to cover for you. From the look on her face, I could see it was finally becoming clear to her what she'd done. Her face was etched with deep pain. I'm so sorry, Henry. I know you are very wounded by my actions, but could I ask you to hold me for a few moments? I just feel so lost. I rose, began to walk across the room, then stopped. I'm sorry, Liz, but I will never touch you again. Epilogue. Liz farted for a while, but in the end it was inevitable. The divorce was pretty much 50-50 down the middle. Henry's lawyer Tom was correct. You can slut around on your spouse, and the courts will reward your infidelity and punish the victim. Fortunately for Henry, the kids were adults, so no child support. His company was thriving, so even with the settlement he would be okay financially. Liz wanted them to keep the lake house jointly. Henry refused. They finally agreed to put it in a trust for Tracie and Hank. 50-50 for each one of them. Maybe someday Henry would return there to play with grandkids. He was doubtful. The lawsuits didn't go anywhere, but Lester was fired and run out of town by angry club members. Julie Mitchell's and Kim Ferguson's husbands received a small portion of the recording where Lester confessed to ducking them. Both couples divorced. Mike Jensen took a bad beating one night coming out of the gym where he worked out. 3 weeks later it happened again. He decided to move. Nobody was ever connected to the assaults. Henry and Liz sold the house. Both live in condos on opposite ends of town. Henry has met someone he dates often, but he's still gun shy. Word got around about the divorce, and Liz has a reputation for being easy, so she tends to avoid going out much for now. Tracie and Hank see both parents, although their relationship with their mother is still frosty. Every time a tornado siren goes off, Henry gets a sad smile on his face and shrugs his shoulders. Liz sits down and cries. It took a tornado to uncover the real storm. And here's the end of our story. Many of you have asked me for an update on what's happening in my life after Christmas. As you've noticed, I've been absent for a while, and haven't shared any details about my life for a long time, and there are reasons for that. Since Christmas, as you may remember, and for those who might not remember or haven't watched my videos, I mentioned that my daughter would be spending some more time with us after Christmas. Since then, my girlfriend and I have become much closer. And honestly, it was unexpected. Please, don't judge me, but we've moved in together. We're living wonderfully now, everything is fine. We get along very well. And believe me, I remember all those stories about cheating, where we heard about how quickly husbands jump into another marriage. That's definitely not about me. It's been quite some time since my divorce. And now, yes, we've moved in together, but I'm not in a hurry to propose to her, as I still want to make sure that she can stay faithful to me, living under the same roof. We've been living together since mid-January, so it's not been that long. And so far, everything is perfect. I'm happy. As you can see, videos are coming out regularly. It's all thanks to her. So, these are the updates. My daughter is with her mom, as usual. She spends weekends with us. Speaking of weekends, it was very important for me that my girlfriend gets along well with my daughter, because we will be with her every weekend. And it doesn't matter if she wants to go to a restaurant with me or anywhere else. We can only be with my daughter. It was important for me that my girlfriend accepts this. And as it turns out, she accepts it very well. Perhaps she's meant to be a wife. But I'm not rushing into anything, as much as people advise me. I'm not making any hasty conclusions. We'll see what happens in reality. Will she remain this way, or will there come a time when I'll get a complaint that I'm not spending enough time with her? We'll see. So for now, you can be happy for your old man Jason. I'm doing well. And thank you to everyone who was concerned. Love you. Subscribe to my channel. And see you day after tomorrow.